Dance Your Heart on Fire podcast, episode number 45. I usually see that most guys typically fall on two ends of this spectrum. Usually guys are on one side to where they feel like they got it. They don't have to learn anything else. They're good, and they're kind of walking around and dancing with this ego that they're really, really, really super good dancers. And then you see a bunch of guys on the other side of the spectrum who are not as confident, pretty shy, beat themselves up and let the fear and the uncertainty of their lead and wanting to improve affect their dancing. And you want to find a balance between both of those guys. This is something that I have struggled with a lot over the years.
Welcome to the Dance Your Heart on Fire podcast, the podcast dedicated to inspiring dancers worldwide whose hearts have been touched by music and dance. The universal language of dance and music is spoken by many of us throughout the world. We want to motivate the dancer in you by sharing stories, insights, and ideas to enhance your journey. Join us now with your host, Charles Ogar.
Hello, everyone. This is Charles with the Dance Your Heart on Fire podcast, coming at you with another episode. As you can see in the title, I'm going to be sharing 8 tips for my Kizomba leads out there who are at different stages in their learning and growth as Kizomba dancers. In this podcast, I wanted to share some tips with you that I've learned across my journey that is still going. Sharing some tips that if I could go back in time, I would definitely tell myself as I started to learn Kizomba. And I'm sharing these tips with you guys to kind of share my journey and kind of tips and quotes and experiences that have helped shape my lead thus far. And the goal for that is for you guys to take that information, that experience, my frustrations, my faults, my lessons learned to apply to your dancing so you don't have to go through the same struggles, and you're able to really improve your lead and grow your lead and get as much satisfaction and growth out of your Kizomba as possible. It's my goal to kind of inspire and motivate you guys and encourage you guys. So this is the motive for today's podcast. It's just going to be me and you today, and this goes out to my ambi leads as well. For those of you who are learning how to lead and follow, especially those of you here in the US, this is for you as well to share my insights, and I hope you guys take a lot of value out of today's podcast. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first tip. First tip is going to be increase your self-awareness. Towards the beginning of the year, I did a podcast on how to increase your self-awareness in your dancing. And I have a series of questions here to ask yourself to know exactly what is it that you want to do with dance, you know? You have to ask yourself, why is it that you're dancing? What kind of satisfaction do you derive out of your dancing? Do you like meeting the new people? Do you like traveling? Do you like challenging yourself? Is it one of those things? Is it a combination of those things? I feel like finding your why is really important and acknowledging that why, so that way you can continue to find what is it that you like about dancing. And so you don't lose sight of that. Sometimes if we don't ask ourselves those questions, and we just kind of show up to different dance functions and show up for private lessons, sometimes we get lost and we forget why we started in the first place. what is your learning style? I think sometimes leads run into a lot of frustrations because they don't know exactly what's the best way that they learn. Or if you find an instructor that really caters to the way of your thinking, definitely continue to follow that instructor. Don't get discouraged because you can't find an instructor that really caters to your learning style, or find an alternative. Like, find out if you are a visual learning, if you're more audio, and if you're able to communicate how you learn to the instructor, hopefully that instructor is able to cater his teaching style to maximize your learning potential. What elements in the dance inspire you? What elements of the dance discourage you? There are all different types of ways to show up in the dance scene. I think it's really important to know what exactly gives you that euphoric feeling that we all know in dance, and find ways to hone in on that, and find the things that also discourage you and avoid those things. I hate it when I see people and leads that have lots of potential into the dancing, but for one reason or another, they get discouraged or they get bored and then they step out of the scene. And I feel like as much work as we're trying to do here, especially in the US, to grow, to get you curious about Kizomba, and we kind of lose you in that regard to becoming a Kizomba addict because you get discouraged. So discouragement, we can't avoid that, but I feel it's important to, if you know what discourages you, don't put yourself in those kind of environments, Also, I think it's also important to know, what is your goal with dancing? How much time are you willing to invest? How much money are you willing to invest? How much energy are you willing to invest into your dancing? There is no right or wrong answer, but I think it's really important to know exactly how much you're willing to put forth into your dancing, to grow your dancing. And I'm pretty sure you guys have heard me say before in previous podcasts that it's really awesome to see how dance puts you on this path of like self-discovery. And with that self-discovery, I think it's really important to find out who you are. And I feel like dance is one of those ways to definitely expedite that process versus what your 9-to-5 job may or may not be. But yeah, I feel like the more you are able to enhance your dance journey, the more you're able to get personal satisfaction and personal growth out of that. Jumping into tip number 2, don't underestimate the power of solid basics. I did a podcast with Nemanja not too long ago, who was an instructor out of Estonia. I got the chance to meet him at the Vegas Kizomba Festival earlier this year. In that podcast, he shared a quote that has stayed with me till today, and I've used it a lot in my workshops. And that quote is, "The basics are the first thing that you learn and the last thing that you master." And that has stuck with me for the last couple of months now, and I think it's going to stay with me for the next couple of years, because you are always polishing your basics, and the basics help you propel you into higher, more intermediate and advanced footwork, moves, concepts, patterns, what have you, I think it's really important to revisit your basics as you push your comfort zone with more advanced movement. I think it doesn't serve you to only focus on the advanced movement without revisiting your basics. And I know it doesn't sound sexy, it doesn't sound cool, but even with myself, over 4 years of dancing Kizomba, I still find myself really becoming aware of like my weight shifting, even in basic 1, basic 2, my saidas. It's really, really enlightening to know that you're strengthening your basics. At the same time, it helps you implement more advanced movement. There is no shortcut around that. I also believe that as you continue to mature and as you continue to grow as a lead in Kizomba, you're going to realize that it really isn't so much about the quantity of moves that you know. It's really going to be based on the quality of your movement. If you can do both, that's awesome. It's important to have a good set of moves, but to think that you need to learn 1,000 moves to become a good Kizomba lead, when in actuality, if you have a good set of maybe 5 to 10 moves, but you're able to lead those moves super well, super confidently, super musically, you can become a very good lead. So My advice to my previous self would definitely be to focus more so on the quality of the movement and not so much on the quantity. And focusing on the quality of the movement, I feel, inspires more creative improvisation to create new moves. So focusing on that quality, guys, is definitely going to help you propel your dancing. Tip number 3 is going to be practice with a purpose. And this is where I see a lot of leads, I guess, kind of not follow through. I see so many leads in my workshops. I see so many leads at these festivals, leads that take privates with me, and they're willing and they're hungry in that 1 hour or however long I'm with them to really learn and get that movement down. But taking privates by themselves and not following through with practice is almost like it's almost a waste of time and money. I feel with proper practice is going to be so crucial to your development. And the reason why I say practice with a purpose, because myself, before I said, okay, let's get together and practice, and I have my practice partner, but there wasn't really an objective. What are we focusing on? What are we trying to improve? I feel like it's really important to focus on technique. All right, I'm going to work on my basic one. I'm going to work on my saidas. I'm going to work on my shuffle steps or something particular to make that smooth. I think it's important to separate those kind of drills and then also separate and give yourself creative, quote unquote, sandbox time to where you really get to test your creativity and test your musicality doing different moves. I struggled with that a lot when I was learning of like getting everything kind of jumbled into one. But the advice that I give to a lot of leads is to separate those two. Be technical, focus on that, focus on your basics. And then on the flip side, also give yourself some fun time to kind of really become yourself in your dancing and give yourself that purpose when you're practicing. With that being said, I think it's really important to have several practice partners. I have several practice partners that I practice with, especially since I don't have an official partner. But I feel like having several practice partners allows you to at least get some practice in when one of them is traveling or sick or can't make it that week for whatever reason. You have backup partners. If you're able to meet with several practice partners a week or per month, I think is really important. I like having multiple practice partners so you're able to test your lead with different follows and really make sure that you're able to lead certain movement with different follows. It's one thing to be used to leading a particular girl and having that girl get acclimated to you versus leading a girl who really isn't familiar with your style. Are you able to be clear to a follow who doesn't necessarily know your style like the back of her hand? And so I feel like dancing with multiple practice partners helps you kind of have that perspective of being able to adapt. As you become a better and better lead, the more you're going to be able to compensate and adapt with different types of follows. I think it's also important to understand with practicing with a purpose, your mental capacity limits. In the dance, we kind of have 3 main focus areas. We have to be aware of ourselves, we have to be aware of our partners, and we have to be aware of what's going on with the music. And many times in my workshops, if I focus on yourself, focus on your frame, focus on your footwork, focus on your follow and her weight and where her weight is. And then on top of that, focus on the music. A lot of guys, they can't handle all that information all at once. This is why it's so important to practice. So that way, once you are more confident with your basics by yourself, that is one less thing. It doesn't take up so much mental capacity to operate you by yourself. With that added space of mental capacity, you're then able to focus on your partner. As you focus more on your partner and you practice more with your partner, the easier it becomes. And then now you create more space in your mind and you're able to focus on the music. I think it's so important. And I feel like a lot of guys limit themselves because they're not practicing on their own. And then their mental capacity is always full without being able to juggle those 3 main focus areas. And it shows in their dancing, In some of my previous podcasts, we talked about the 4 stages of learning, from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. And this is a cycle that you're going to be repeating over and over again in your dancing. It's one thing to be aware of the things that you need to do, the things that you want to do. And it's one thing to kind of reach a stage where it's so effortless, it doesn't take up that much mental capacity, and you're doing these things by second nature. I think it's so important. And my last note, or my last tip here on the practicing with a purpose, is to record yourselves. It is so imperative to record yourself, because as a lead, guys, you have to realize that you are completely blind to how your lead looks if you're not recording yourself. And recording myself has uncovered so many things that I realized that I'm doing that I wasn't aware of, where my foot is placing, my posture, where my frame is, and so many things are uncovered by reviewing the videos of yourself. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, but I would highly recommend opening up a Dropbox or a Google Drive account to save these videos over time. Invest in a camera that has a separate memory card, so you're not always trying to depend on the memory of your phone to record all of your videos. I bought a DSLR camera for recording lots of video, and I have an SD card that's a 128 gigs, so I can record tons of video, and I'm able to review that. And I have a Dropbox folder that has my training videos for my practice partners, and then also solo practice, and it helps grow your dance so much. Tip number 4, find 100% Kizomba only socials and dance with everyone. Socials are a great way to kind of test your lead and get that repetition that's needed to push your lead to new levels. It's one thing to work on your lead by yourself or with your practice partner, but like I said, the true test of your lead is going to be able to lead different follows comfortably and clearly through what it is that you want to do. I go to a lot of Kizomba socials. Usually I'm dancing nonstop at these socials, and it's crazy to see the leads who have come out and invested time, they've invested money, they've invested energy to come and learn, but then they don't apply that at the social. If you don't dance at the socials, you're not going to get to that point to where it's repetition. It's like practicing with a purpose. Social dancing is a perfect practice place for you to get that repetition in, so that way the simple things don't take up so much mental capacity anymore. And try to dance with as many different follows as you can. This is super important because you want to be adaptable. I tell my follows this all the time. You don't want to get used to just one particular style, anything like that. You want to be adaptable. You want to be able to adapt to different leads. And the same thing for the leads. You want to be able to adapt to different follows and be able to listen to them and treat each dance, each connection uniquely, and adapt to that particular person, that particular girl, in that particular dance. I still feel that 100% Kizomba only socials aren't as common here in the US. So I feel it's important to seek those out and take advantage of those, especially if you have a live DJ or you have Kizomba after back-to-back Kizombas that are mixed consistently throughout the night versus one Kizomba song and you stop. Dancing multiple songs with one person also helps you increase your connection and get into that flow and groove and really help mature your lead in your dancing. Let's take a quick moment to thank our sponsors. Have you been looking to level up your Kizomba, but you don't have the local instructors to take you there? Are you looking for something concrete to practice with your Kizomba partner? Or are you looking for Kizomba lessons that you can take on your schedule and the comfort of your home? If you answered yes to any of these questions, look no further. LearnToKiz.com is what you need. Progressive, step-by-step lessons that you can take at your pace in the comfort of your home or anywhere with a solid internet connection on your PC, Mac, or any smartphone. New videos are added every month. You can try this awesome resource out 30 days free at LearnToKiz.com/podcast. After the 30 days free, it's only a low $15 per month. But again, the special offer for the Dance Your Heart on Fire listeners, 30 days free at LearnToKiz.com/podcast. You won't find this offer anywhere else. LearnToKiz.com/podcast. And now back to our show. Tip number 5, seek out and appreciate the feedback from your follows. As I was saying in the tip of practicing with a purpose, to record yourself, because sometimes you can be completely blind into how your lead looks and how your posture looks and things like that. I think it's also important for a lead to realize that he's completely blind to how his lead feels. Your perception of what is heavy and what is light completely isn't always going to match up with a lot of people. I myself, when I go to Europe each time, I find that I have to lighten up my lead so much. But it just helps kind of recalibrate my lead and make sure that I'm paying attention to the follow. I'm not using unnecessary force to accomplish the moves and the patterns and the steps that I'm trying to do. It's really important to have a friendly, helpful follow be the mirror of your leads, so you can see it and you can polish it to a higher level. If you take a look at all of the elite top tier leads that we have in the world, they did not get to that status without a follow by their sides, helping them polish their lead over and over and over. So super, super important to appreciate the feedback from the follows, even if it's from day one. I had this one quote that said, the feedback that you get from a follow is just as important on day one as it is on day 1,000. Just because you're a more advanced lead doesn't mean that you don't need feedback from follows anymore. I seek out that follows even at this stage in my dancing, and it just helps polish your lead so much more and pick up on little intricacies and subtleties that you weren't aware of before. Tip number 6, being present. This is something that did not come as easy to me over time. And for those of you that have been following me around for a bit, you guys remember when I did a survey on the love languages, and I wanted to see what love languages were common among Kizomberos, or those people who had fallen in love with the dance. And the top 2 love languages that I have found were physical touch and also quality time. I think quality time is something that I did not appreciate as much when I first started dancing Kizomba, but now I can realize the importance and the power of being present in the moment. And with that quality time, just having somebody's one-on-one undivided attention for 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, however long that dance is something that's super rare in our society. And I feel like Kizomba is one of those few places where we can go and really soak in that quality time with another person. And I feel like the first step into being able to connect with somebody and being present is like just being willing to. And that takes, again, some self-awareness and also being willing to connect with another person on that level. One of the quotes that have stuck with me over the years was from a private lesson that I took with João Rocha. He was an instructor in Spain, and he mentioned the subtlety of dancing at the bottom of your breath. And this was because I found myself not breathing in my dancing because you're getting nervous and you're thinking about it a lot. And then sometimes we forget to breathe. And I feel like the breath is the connection between your mind and your body. So if we have a calm mind and a calm breath, then we can have a calm body. And that's allowing us to be super smooth and connected and picking up on the little subtle things with our dance partners. Another quote that kind of enhances this is like the dance is what happens in between the steps. So yes, everybody can do the same steps, the saidas, shuffle steps, syncopations, what have you. But what's going to give you your own unique flow, I feel, is the energy that you bring to the dance. I feel being willing to be present with another person definitely enhances and opens up the door to amazing connections that you can have on the dance floor. Tip number 7 is definitely going to be taking care of your personal hygiene, guys. I can't stress that enough. I still get a lot of comments and say things like that from the ladies about guys that aren't taking this seriously or aren't taking it to the level that they can. Strive to smell as good as possible. So that means taking care of your breath, brushing your teeth, mints, gum, mouthwash. Go overboard. I don't think you'll be sorry. making sure that you have a good smelling cologne or essential oil or something, some scent that'll be nice, and fresh clothes. So that means don't come to a Kizomba social after you've been to the gym already. Put on a fresh pair of clothes and the ladies will appreciate it so much. I think once you are able to smell good, then that just opens up the door for the lady to be able to relax and really truly connect with you in the dance. And my final tip here for you guys is going to be finding a balance between confidence and humility. I usually see that most guys typically fall on two ends of this spectrum. Usually guys are on one side to where they feel like they got it. They don't have to learn anything else. They're good. And they're kind of walking around and dancing with this ego that they're really, really, really super good dancers. And then you see a bunch of guys on the other side of the spectrum who are not as confident, pretty shy, beat themselves up and let the fear and the uncertainty of their lead and wanting to improve affect their dancing. And you want to find a balance between both of those guys. This is something that I have struggled with a lot over the years. You can't dance beating your chest, kind of like with this confident bravado, if you will. And you also can't dance with your tail in between your legs. You have to realize that there's always going to be something to improve in your dancing, but you have to put your best foot forward each time. Your comfort zone is going to continuously shift as you grow as a lead. So you will never arrive to this one destination. So love the process of continual growth, to keep learning and things like that, and know that that's normal. Bring your best at that particular point in your dancing. Own where you're at, but then also always be humble to continue to learn and be a student. I remember taking a private lesson with Felicien and Isabel, and one of the things that he noticed in my dancing is that I was dancing as if I had to prove something. And so he told me, stop dancing like you have to prove something. And that stuck with me over the years. And over the years, I've also been reading different books and things like that to kind of become a better instructor. One of these books is called The Practicing Mind by Thomas Sterner. And a quote in that book that has stuck with me over the year was, art is infinite. And in the book, he was talking about learning the piano, but any particular art, from dancing to singing to writing to playing a musical instrument, is going to be an infinite. The human expression is infinite. So there's always going to be improvement. There's always going to be something to grow upon, and I feel like we're never going to arrive. And that's why the quote of it being infinite is kind of really, it really changes your perspective of trying to get to a particular destination versus hunkering down on the process of continuing to improve and growing your craft. And on that note, that will wrap up our podcast. I really hope the leads found value in these lessons and quotes that have stuck with me over the years. And I hope that you guys come back to this podcast when you're feeling a little discouraged, or come back to this podcast when you feel like your ego is coming up unnecessarily. I hope that you guys are able to share this podcast with your friends, and I really hope it enhances your growth. I hope you guys learn from my lessons and struggles, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast. If you have any comments or stories that you'd like to share with me, I'm all ears. You can send me an email at charles@neokizomba.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you for checking out the Dance Your Heart on Fire podcast today. Be sure to check out neokizomba.com for links to everything that we chatted about today, as well as some awesome free resources to enhance your Kizomba journey.